So the NL Central looks to be stacked this year. And my viewers will be familiar with this division. So just to let you guys know, I am a Milwaukee Brewer fan, so I might get a little carried away with this division. Might get a little more in depth than usual. I'm trying with the show to not be like super, like have a super niche audience where it's like I covered the Midwest only and like that type of thing. I think that only appeals a certain amount to people. I think if you want to truly grow as a brand and if you want to be respected as a brand, you have to be willing to talk about most teams and sort of give your views and prove that you're not just watching one team or another. So just a warning there. If I do get a little more in depth, that is because I happen to be a Brewer fan. I know a lot of people listening are going to care about this. So that's the deal with that. So this division is just stacked. And what I mean by stacked is that all of the teams are of comparable talent. So a lot of the other divisions you'll see bottom dweller, a couple middleweights, and then you'll have the top two maybe. You'll have two who are really like the shining favorites. Let's take like the NL East for example. You have the Marlins who are clearly bottom seller, the Phillies and Mets who are kind of maybe could battle for something, but they'll be middling in the middle for the most part. They could have a chance to make a run at the top, and then you have at the top, you have the what am I saying? Nationals and Braves. There it is. Nationals and Braves. We're going to be contending for their division title. This division, 4 out of the 5 teams could win the title. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So stop teasing you. Let's go ahead and get right into it. 5th place in this division, I have, which should be no surprise to anyone who follows this division, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I have them going 23-37. Their manager is Derek Shelton. He will be replacing longtime manager Clint Hurdle, who was let go at the end of last season. They are rebuilding for sure. This is an interesting lineup. They definitely will steal some games from some teams. But like I said, the division is just way more talented than they are. And so I think that for that reason, they just don't quite have the players yet to make any sort of run at a division title. Their lineup, they have an interesting pop. They have Josh Bell, who's obviously their guy now. He had a breakout season last year. He's definitely the one who carries this lineup. Otherwise, you have Kyle Moran, another young star, Gregory Polanco. He has coronavirus, so he won't be back for a little bit. You have Brian Reynolds, Gerard Dyson, Jose Ozuna. Basically just some young guys who they're kind of waiting to blossom and really develop into the players they know that hopefully they will be. They did lose Starling Marte in free agency. He was sort of a big deal for them. He's one of the better offensive players for them last year. And then for the starters, you have some youngsters looking to make a mark and some older players who are really just trying to prove themselves. You have Mitch Keller, who had kind of an abysmal year last year. He'll look to be their guy this year. They're really hoping that he will take sort of that next step. You have Trevor Williams, who sort of had a weird year last year. Jose Musgrove, 27 years old. All these guys are within the 25, 27, 28-year-old range. Steven Brault, 28 years old. And then the old guy on here, Derek Holland, he's 33. He sort of had a really rough year last year. He'll be looking to bounce back. They do lose Chris Archer. He's out for the year with an injury. Whenever he gets back, which will be next year, they're hoping that he'll be able to claim some sort of form that he had for the Rays. His last year was not his best year by any stretch of the imagination. And then for the bullpen, just more youngsters. They really need to just blossom. That's what this team is. This team is in limbo, basically, waiting for these pieces they have to sort of blossom. It's like they want to step on the gas, but the car just won't let them. That's like my best analogy for it, is that the technology, I guess, it just won't. They just can't take that next step yet because everyone's sort of a little too young, a little too inexperienced. For relievers, you have Chad Kuhl. Chris Stratton will make a lot of relief appearances. You'll also have for the closers, Keone Kela. He's their main guy they'll be looking toward. He'll be their guy the whole year when he comes back from coronavirus. Until then, Kyle Crick should be the closer to look to. Sort of had a rough go of it last year. He'll be looking to bounce back. They did lose Felipe Vasquez due to yikes. He had, I believe, he had something naughty he did with children. I'll leave it at that. You can go look it up on your own time. I won't discuss it here. It's disgusting. He's a disgusting human being. I don't think he should be in baseball anymore, but that's a whole separate video. He's not there anymore. Whatever. So overall, this is just a young team still trying to grow in a division that is overly talented than they are. So Pittsburgh Pirates, 23-37. Now these next three teams, I just want to say, I have them tying for second. Well, listen, this, like I said, this division, everyone is basically at the same level here, except for I think one team. One team will finish first, but by like a game, I feel like. It's crazy to me. Like how, like I went over this. This is easily the hardest division I've had to cover so far. There is so much. There's so much room for movement at the top. You can look at it from this angle and be like, well, this team's really good here, but this other team really has them outbeat here. I don't even know. I didn't know how to go about this. I changed the order of these three teams so many times while I was recording this or taking notes for this. But I've come to a final decision. I'm actually kind of glad that I waited to do this division so I can watch some of the games this weekend, watch some of the teams, see how they would perform. It kind of gives me a little bit of an idea on where to rank them, how to rank them. So without further ado, I'll just tell you in order right now what I think the teams will go. They'll be second place, but for tiebreaker purposes, I think for like head-to-head matchups, here's how I think it'll go. I think the Brewers will finish last of the second place finishers. The Cubs will be in the middle of the second place finishers, and then the Reds will be the best of the runner-ups who finish in second. So let's go ahead and let's start with the Brewers. I have the Milwaukee Brewers going 36-24. Their manager is Craig Counsell. I didn't know this, but he is actually the longest tenured manager in the National League now. That's crazy to me. I feel like he hasn't been there that long. Anyway, this team got a whole facelift this offseason. And I think that they traded a lot of their impact they had on the roster for depth. So the lineup, you still have Christian Yelich, who to me is the top three player in baseball. Any given moment, he's so good. And then around him, you have Keston Hiura. Young gun really stepped up last year as a rookie. They did lose Yasmani Grandal, Mike Moustakas. Those two were really big impact players they had on their infield. Eric Thames is another key guy that they lost. They did replace them. You have Omar Narvaez coming in from Seattle. He'll basically be a budget version of Grandal. They paid him less. They'll be getting a little bit less, but he's essentially the same player. A lot of pop in the bat. Not quite the defensive framer that Grandal was. Grandal is one of the best catchers in the game at framing pitches. You also have Justin Smoke, who came in from the Blue Jays. He's another power bat. Eric Sogard comes back after his resurgence with the Rays. You have Ryan Braun, who will be DHing this year. He'll probably be back next year, but he's still a productive bat in the lineup. Avisail Garcia, they just got from the Rays. And Luis Urias is someone they acquired in the trade with the Padres. He should be back after he clears the coronavirus protocols and whatnot, taking the place, hopefully, of Orlando Arcia for everyone in the Brewers' sake, any fan of the Brewers. So their lineup just gets a whole facelift. They do a lot of impact, but they also gain a lot more depth at the positions that they have. The starters, once again, had a little bit of a facelift. And basically, the Brewers are trying to buy into all these young guys they have. So Brandon Woodruff, he's their main guy. He's the ace of this lineup. He had a really breakout year last year, made the All-Star team as an injury replacement, I believe. They also have Adrian Hauser, who had a really good year last year. He'll hope to build off of that, especially the second half. Young gun and Corbin Burns, he had a rough go of it trying to make his first start last year in the MLB. He'll look to sort of change his luck this year. And then you have Eric Lauer, who also came in from the Padres trade. He's a guy, he's 25 years old. He's looking to get into the rotation. He's doing relief appearances right now. And then they brought in Brett Anderson. He's an old guy. He's puts up solid numbers. He'll look to eat up a decent amount of innings as well, put up some good numbers for them. As for the people they lost, man, they lose Jordan Lyles. He was really good last year when they had him. It was Gio Gonzalez putting he had up a lot of innings for them. Zach Davies did a decent job last year. He was part of the trade to bring in Eric Lauer and Luis Urias. And Chase Anderson, who goes to the Blue Jays. The bullpen, though, still a great bullpen. You have Josh Hader leading the charge once again of a group who's pretty deep. So you have Brent Suter as a relief guy. You have David Phelps, who they bring in from the Cubs. You also have, obviously, Josh Hader, one of the best relievers in baseball. And then along with him, Corey Knebel making his comeback this year. He had, I believe, Tommy John last year. Some sort of regular pitcher injury where he was out for the year. And I think he'll really add another punch that this bullpen really needs. They did lose some guys, though. They lost Jeremy Jeffress to the Cubs. He also did have a bit of a down year last year. Drew Pomeranz, who they brought over in a trade from the Padres last year, did really well while he was there. They just didn't want to pay him, I guess. They didn't have the money to pay him. Whatever. He went to the Giants. And Junior Guerra put in some solid innings at relief for them last year. But he's gone as well. So, reiterating, this lineup doesn't quite have the power, not quite the star talent I think that's needed to win the tiebreakers versus the Cubs and the Reds. I think that they'll lose the head-to-head battles with both of those teams, putting them at the bottom of the second-place barrel. In the middle of the second-place tie, I have the Chicago Cubs. I once again have them going 36-24, but winning the head-to-head against the Brewers, losing their head-to-head matchups against the Reds. Their manager this year is David Ross, a famed catcher of that World Series that they won in 2016, replacing longtime manager Joe Madden. The talent on this roster, big as always, but I don't think they quite have the bullpen to beat the Reds in those key head-to-head matchups. The lineup is star-studded as usual. You have Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez. Those three guys could be MVPs in any given year. More so Bryant and Baez, I feel like they do a little more to earn the MVP, a little more defensively. You also have guys like Kyle Schwarber, who's always a solid power hitter. You have Wilson Contreras, who's a big power hitter. You also have Nico Horner coming in at shortstop. He's a prospect that they'll see get some playing time this year. They didn't lose too much, although they did lose one key piece, being Nick Castellanos, who went to the rival, the Reds, this offseason. He's a double-hitting machine. That's all that guy does is just hit doubles, especially when he came over to the Cubs last year. And then as for the starting lineup, for the rotation, you have some solid names just looking to prove themselves again. You have Yu Darvish, who sort of, I guess you could say he's rebounded from the rough start that he had when he first got to the Cubs. He got a lot of flack, and I think since then he's really settled in, become a solid pitcher there. I don't think he's anything like he was on the Rangers, but he's still got solid stuff. He'll still give you consistent outings. You have John Lester, who at this point, if you could get anything lower than like a 4 ERA out of him, that'd be a godsend, honestly. I think he's just getting over the hill at this point. He's 36 years old. I hope he does well. I like watching him pitch. I like watching him try to throw over to first base. That's the funniest thing in the world to me. He's so bad at it. If you haven't watched it before, just go on YouTube. Search John Lester throwing to first base. It's hilarious. You have Kyle Hendricks. He's going to put in some solid work as per usual. He killed my Brewers with a complete game shutout over the weekend. Tyler Chatwood, he's also a solid pitcher. He's a guy who's on the rise. He also killed my Brewers this weekend. Some solid innings. Jose Quintana, he'll be looking to bounce back. He sort of had a okay year last year, sort of pedestrian for the standards you'd like to see him at. But against the interdivision rivals, he's always really good. And then the bullpen, not the best. This bullpen has had a reputation of blowing games for the past couple of years. Mainly last year, they really were terrible, honestly. You have relief guys. Jeremy Jeffress comes over from the Brewers, as previously stated. He'll be looking to bounce back. Brad Wick, he should put in some relief innings for them. Closers, Craig Kimbrell, one point was considered one of the best relievers in the game. Last year, definitely did not look the part. He looked to bounce back this year. He was really awful, honestly, last year. Just blew every game he came into. It was terrible. You also have Kyle Ryan, who will put in a couple innings for them, setup-wise, and Rowan Wick as well. They lost a decent amount of guys at this position, too. They lost Steve Shizek, Brandon Kinsler, Pedro Strop was a big name they lost, and David Phelps going to the Brewers, as previously mentioned. So I think while they don't quite have the bullpen to win those head-to-head matchups against the Reds, they are an amazing squad everywhere else. Their starters are really good, really solid group there. They have the talent in the bats. They've proven that the past 4 years, really. They've proven they have the talent in those bats. And for that reason, I think they will win that head-to-head against the Brewers, lose it against the Reds, sort of in the middle of this second-place draw. Now, the team that's going to finish the best of the second place barrel, I guess you would say, is the Cincinnati Reds. Once again, going 36-24. Their manager is David Bell. They have lots of bats, lots of talents, but I don't think they quite have the chemistry yet. They just brought in a lot of pieces this year. They'll be looking to sort of gel together for the next couple of years to really make a push at the title. Their lineup seriously improved from last year. Even though they only added a couple pieces, those couple pieces they added are pretty big if they can perform. So you have Eugenio Suarez, who's their big home run hitter. You bring in Nick Castellanos, double machine from the Cubs. You have Mike Moustakas, who you bring in from the Brewers. Jesse Winker at the DH. Joey Votto. You also have Nick Senzel. And then you have the bright spots in Aristides Aquino, who is the guy who bust onto the scene the last minute of last year. He'll look to DH a little bit this year. He's got that super weird batting stance. They did lose Jose Iglesias in the offseason. As for the starters, this group is elite. I'm just going to say it. This is one of the best rotations in the MLB, I think, if they can all fire on what they should be pitching. Sonny Gray has had a revival since he's come here from his time with the Yankees last year, especially working with Derek Johnson, who was his former pitching coach. Has really sort of given him a facelift. He'll do really well this year, I feel. Trevor Bauer will be looking to rebound and get back to his old form after having sort of a rough go of it last year. Luis Castillo, he'll look to build on a solid resume, on a solid 3.4 ERA he had last year. You have Wade Miley, who comes in. He'll look to build on some solid years that he's had. And you also have Anthony Desclafani. He'll look to also keep under that 4 ERA mark. They lost Kevin Gossman and Alex Wood in free agency, but honestly, I don't think it really matters. This, to me, is a top 10 rotation in the league if everyone can be living up to the hype that they're expected to. The bullpen, also pretty good. Pedro Strop they bring in from the Cubs. He'll look to revive himself there. Robert Stevenson, Tyler Mahle. You'll see them get some innings in relief. Their closers, Rafael Iglesias, he'll look to get back to his form he did a couple years ago. Michael Lorenzen, though, looks to be the main guy for them. One of those two, either Rafael or Michael Lorenzen. You'll also see Amir Garrett, who was in the famed Reds-Pirates brawl last year. He'll be looking to get back some of that form. He'll get some setup innings as well. So overall, this team, I think, is really good on the bats, really good pitching-wise. Their bullpen could be a little shaky, but I think that they overall have the talent to beat the Cubs in some head-to-heads, but not quite the experience or the gel to beat the first-place team in this division. And that first-place team in the division is the St. Louis Cardinals. I have them going 37-23, beating the second-place tie of the Brewers, Cubs, and Reds by a single game. Their manager is Mike Schilt. And the main thing for me as to why I chose them to stay on the top was their consistency with their lineup. You could argue the Cubs were consistent with their lineup, but I think that their bullpen, they lost too many pieces, they're bringing in too many new guys. It's just sort of weird with the bullpen there. Otherwise, if the Cubs would have had a little better bullpen, I probably would have put them to win the division. But with the Cardinals, you get this consistency that they had in the offseason, and then amazing talent around the board, and really some young guys on the rise. So the lineup, you got a bunch of workhorses, honestly, is the best word to suit them. You have a lot of guys who you know what you're going to get out of them day in and day out. Paul Goldschmidt will always put in a solid season. Paul DeYoung, solid shortstop. Colton Wong, Tommy Edman, Matt Carpenter, he's looking to bounce back. They did lose Marcell Ozuna and Brad Miller in the offseason, but I think they have a level of consistency in their lineup where they won't miss a bat or two. I think they'll be okay. Starters, you have one shining veteran, that being Adam Wainwright, leading a group of young stars. Their young star being Jack Flaherty, 24 years old, under 3 ERA last year. He'll probably get some Cy Young votes this year if he performs like everyone thinks he will. After the All-Star break last year, he kind of went insane, just went on a complete tear. It was honestly something crazy to watch. You have Dakota Hudson, who's only 25. He'll look to have a really good year this year. And then Adam Wainwright, who's 38 years old. 38. And the man is still pitching, still putting in some decent innings. Anything around a 4.2 ERA will be good for him. You have Carlos Martinez, who will put in some innings for them, as well as Miles Michaelis, who has one of the best mustaches in the game. Doesn't really pertain to his pitching at all, but hopefully he can get back to the form he had 2 years ago, because he had a really good year then. Last year was sort of pedestrian for him, but he should look to get back to his form he did last year, 2 years ago, sorry. They do lose Michael Wacha to the Mets, but I think that this rotation is deep enough where that's fine. He had sort of a pedestrian year last year, but he was really good against interleague teams during divisional play. So, oh, hold on. Sorry, I just thought that my computer just crashed on me for a second there. As for the bullpen, it's an interesting mix. You have of old and new guys. For some relief pitches you can see, Daniel Ponce de Leon should make some appearances. John Gant will also get some looks. As for their closers, you have in Kwang Hyun Kim, who you bring in from the KBO. He's been there for years. He's 31. You have Giovanni Gallegos, who should look to be the full-time closer this year. And then you have Ryan Helsley. He'll look to get some setup appearances along with the veteran Andrew Miller, who's 35. So this is overall an interesting mix of old and new faces coming to the lineup. You do lose Jordan Hicks, the flamethrower, to Tommy John this year. So that's one piece that they don't have. But overall, this team, I think, stayed the most consistent in the offseason, especially, with the bullpen. I think their bullpen a little bit better than the Cubs. I think just because of the fact that they know what they're getting into, they know the type of people they have, they know what to expect from everyone. That, to me, is what sets them over the edge of everyone else in this division. The Brewers have a major facelift, a bunch of new guys they have to bring in to really gel. The Cubs, while their lineup is solid, it stayed consistent. Their bullpen's always been shaky, and it doesn't help that they lost some guys as well. And then with the Reds, while they are really talented, they have a lot of new faces coming into the team. So a lot of these teams have question marks. To me, the St. Louis Cardinals have the most consistency among them. The most yes, this is what we are, this is what we have, this is what we're going to do this year. So I have them winning the division at 37-23. So once again, to recap, I have the Pirates in 5th place, going 23-37. I have these Brewers, Reds, and Cubs tying for 2nd place. Brewers being at the bottom of that 2nd place tie, Cubs being in the middle. The Reds coming out on top of that 2nd place tie with the head-to-head matchups. And then I have the 1st place St. Louis Cardinals going 37-23, winning the division by a game in what will surely be, hopefully, the most exciting division to watch in baseball this year.